be changed to just say teams, I believe. But nevertheless, when you participate in the movement, obviously the first step is to join the movement, to join your local chapter, in other words. And then the next step, to be proactive, is to try and help out with some of the teams that we do. Obviously, actions within your community chapter can be busy enough where you might not even have time for the teams, but some people, maybe in more dormant chapters or have specific skills, do have the time to participate in our teams. We have updated our team structure quite substantially. It's been almost completely overhauled. When we first set up the teams, for those of you that had joined previous lists, you will have to join new lists eventually. The site page is not quite updated. There's still some contact information and email lists that need to be created, but this will be happening very, very soon. Again, we used to have a kind of a broad sense of teams, technology team and communications team. What we've realized as things have kind of unfolded is that the teams are almost all communicative in some form or another. And I'm going to go through them right now. The first team I'd like to bring up, which has been around for a while, which has been directed by Ray, or also known as G-Man on the forum, do a tremendously good job, and it's one of the most complex teams in an odd way, or I guess one of the most arduous teams, I'll put it that way, is the linguistic team. The linguistic team has been doing robust stuff, and they are the bridge of communication between all the languages, so they're very, very critical. If anyone out there does have a bilingual or multilingual capacity, please help us out if you have the time with the linguistic team. The next team would be, I'm going to go arbitrarily through this list, would be the lecture public relations team. As I've stated, most coordinators of chapters, I would hope, would have the ability to speak about what they're doing, or at least have people amongst them, if they're just simply doing admin stuff, to take the role of speaking about what we're doing. For example, when we do the release of the film, it's not just to show the film. I'm hoping that the chapters will actually be able to keep the audience after the film is over and speak with them about the movement directly after, and have a Q&A of sorts with the chapter coordinator or anyone that's able to speak. So anyway, lecture public relations team is very, very critical. Obviously, I would be a part of this. Anyone that's been out there that has been speaking about this in an intelligent way, such as Neil or those, obviously there's different layers of understanding here. I can't say I know definitively amongst many different people that go out and talk about these things, like, for example, Ben McLeish. I can't say definitively how educated everyone is because I have never had a chance to sit down with everyone that is being communicative and proactive in a personal sense and weighed their knowledge. But there are emerging individuals that have stood out quite substantially and know what they're talking about. Douglas Millett, hopefully I said his last name correctly. In the past, we were talking about trying to institute a more direct way to get the teams organized, get the lecture team organized, so the information flow and the way we present it is consistent. And in time, I hope we will do that. But for right now, it's really open to people that can kind of show their abilities. For example, if you have an interest in kind of being a part of this, and by the way, these are the individuals that will make it to, say, the news. These are the individuals that will be called in to meet with their local radio stations. I am probably going to get to a point where I'm going to start pawning off interviews with radio stations or even television to other people because I can't do it. So there's things like this that will come to fruition for sure. But back to my point, if you have an interest in trying to express yourself in this way, simply create a lecture. There's so many subtopics that I've yet to address in my talks, and I haven't heard addressed in other people's talks. For example, if you wanted to approach, say, advanced agriculture as a way to address the coming possible energy crisis in relationship to fertilizers that are derived from hydrocarbons. This is a subject that I have been doing a lot of research on, but I've never seen a specific talk about in general. And there are many other sub-attributes that you could do a lecture on. So do a lecture, even if it's just in front of a wall, even if it's just you, and put it online and send it to us. And if it's of value, well, first of all, you can post it on the forum, and I'm sure people will give you their critiques. It'll be a learning expression, a learning experience, excuse me. And if it's of value, then a relationship will be created. If someone's willing to make a 30-minute to hour-long lecture on this stuff, I'm certainly not going to ignore it. I don't see this very often, unfortunately. And while I do see people take the existing lectures and present them, I think that's great. But everyone needs to start thinking proactively about this stuff, because I could write lectures on so many different specific attributes that could be addressed both technologically or sociologically, endlessly. And I hope other people kind of have that understanding as well, that it's almost endless, the angles of exploration that relate to what we're talking about. So, all right, let's move on to the developers team. I believe this team is more or less coordinated by Daniel and Anya at this stage, and from what I have seen, the developers team is very robust. Of course, developers deal with programming, they deal with databases. We have a lot of improvements we want to do to the websites and the arrangement of the websites and how they interact. The Zeitgeist Media Project website, of course, is a product of the developers team and is always undergoing improvements and things as such. So please join the developers team through the projects page. And if you have experience and the know-how to participate in that fashion, there's always wonderful ideas coming through there. Newsletter and press release team. This is the fourth team I'm going to discuss. The newsletter team, as you know, we have had 2 newsletters. We are operating on a bi-monthly basis right now based on quality submissions and time people have to allocate for editing and, of course, translation. We're slowly expanding with this. The newsletter press release team is actually more or less an internal team at this stage, meaning there's a set of people that work closely in the administrative way to evaluate submissions. But the real contribution here is obviously for the content itself. So you can email us the newsletter article that you'd like to submit, or in fact the press release you'd like to submit. We probably will make it more advanced press release team, a dedicated press release team, but that's on the back burner, which will send out periodic press releases about many of the subjects that come up in the news. It's almost endless. If I had time, I'd send out a press release every week about the growing economic crises and the causes of it that no one pays attention to. But I just don't have the time to do so. So if anyone out there wants to submit either a press release or an article for the newsletter, the email is on the project's page. Okay, media project and event team. This is a multifaceted team which is in development. The media project is essentially a submission platform right now, internet-based, which people can submit their audio, video, and visual and other programming media to the site for everyone to view. It's zeitgeistmediaproject.com for those that are not familiar. I think it's a wonderful development. I'm trying to get more interest in it overall. I'd like to create a better community for it, but as of right now, the team isn't much of a team. Angelos has been coordinating that along with the YouTube channel and basic multimedia stuff, communication stuff through media. But that will change through time. What I'd like to do after Zeitgeist Day of 2011 is create a media project day or a media project, Zeitgeist Media Project Festival, and I've been throwing this around for a while. Zeitgeist Day, of course, is a very intellectual day. It's a day where where intellectual concepts about the movement are explored, lectures are given, and the chapters are updated and everything else. Progress status. However, as you all know from my background, I believe heavily in aesthetic communication. I think you can tell someone something intellectually all day, but if you can frame it in an emotionally provocative way, you have a much better chance of getting through to them and crossing those barriers of identification. We live in a TV culture, and when people see war on television, even if it's a real war, they almost don't find a differentiation. But if you were to bring somebody to the battlefield in Afghanistan and see the horror firsthand, to see the death and destruction, I guarantee you their opinions of war might change. They just might change as opposed to just seeing it in this abstraction. So you can tell someone something all day. You can tell somebody about, the need for a value shift in society all day. But I really believe the role of art as a functional communicative medium is to create something is to communicate something socially important. Look at John Lennon's Imagine and the influence that song, probably one of the most prolifically understood or relayed songs of all time. So anyway, eventually I want to have an actual event day. And this could be profoundly effective. We could finally pull in maybe artists. As you know, Natasha Atlas had an album come out with samples of myself and Jacques entitled in English In the State of Reversal. And this whole album is essentially gestured around the value shift that we talk about and the need for a resource-based economy. And the press releases on that, the reviews have all mentioned the Zeitgeist Movement and the Venus Project. It's very, very kind of her to do this, and she believes in it, and I've spoken with her. But perhaps she would come in and help us out with this festival, this media project, this something to bring in the masses in an aesthetic way. And as you all know, most likely, politicians don't hold a candle to media personalities. And I believe it's just a matter of time before this value thing becomes almost trendy, as much as I hate to say it, where people see socially active work, especially with the breakdown, as something that makes them feel more viable to society. And odds are they might actually really believe it as well. So it works on multiple levels. I hate to sound pessimistic about it, but there might be people that actually believe in the movement and be willing to promote it. And we're talking big-time individuals that you see of very high entertainment value, if you will, in the popular culture. I'm not going to drop any names because it doesn't matter, but imagine what would happen if a very, very large star was to promote the Zeitgeist Movement. That would do more for our need of value shift than anything that any politician could ever do at this stage. So I hope that is important. So the media project, media event team is ongoing and developing. As of right now, if you want to participate in the team, there is a newsletter and an email for it. An email for it where you can be on a newsletter list for any type of updates. And we'll have that team develop as we move along. Okay, moving on non-linearly in no particular order. The fifth team I want to mention is not in development whatsoever, but unfortunately it's going to be relevant eventually, is the legal team. This is something that if anyone out there works in a legal capacity, if you have any experience, as you all know, we put down the legal system, but we also recognize the necessity for the legal system and the structure we live in. So don't think because we put the system down doesn't mean we have no use for it. Same thing goes for the issues of security and protection. While I think the prison system is an absolute abomination, we should never punish any human being on this planet for anything. There's a huge difference between punishment and restraint. People do need to be restrained in certain circumstances, especially in this sick culture. But the concept of punishment put forward is such an atrocity and creates more aberrancies than anything else, but I'm going to stop there. The legal team, as we grow larger, more conflicts will arise, and defamation of character, propaganda campaigns,